Well, good morning, Facebook. I want to welcome you to the Wednesday, April 24th edition of 5 Minutes of Hope from St. John Lutheran Church here in Luxembourg, Wisconsin, as we are moving into a new chapter of Isaiah. We're going to be starting Isaiah chapter 8, and the words are going to be small. They're not going to be so small that you can't see them, but obviously I always encourage you to open up a Bible, whether that's a book, a website, or an app on your phone. They all have their pros and cons. We've talked about this in the past. Study Bibles, finding a great study Bible. I personally like the Lutheran Study Bible. It's expensive, but it's probably similar in cost to most study Bibles that are out there that are put out by church bodies in that $60-ish range. If you get the large print version, it's a little bit more than that. Website wise, I like BibleGateway.com. Zondervan is the publisher of behind that. I know some have issues with Zondervan. For the most part, Zondervan has been a decently what's the term I want to use here? A decent publisher of biblical material in the past. Now that can always change as it has been bought by a new owner. But Bible Gateway is an easy website to use. There are others out there, so again, you're not stuck with one. And then apps-wise, there's lots of apps. YouVersion, I personally like the ESV Crossways app. It's really, really nice to use, and it's the English Standard Version, which is a very, very good translation. But totally up to you. So we're moving into a new chapter today, and again, we're building on what we've read before. You're going to hear some elements of what we talked about in Isaiah chapter 7. You're going to hear some elements today, or references to things that were talked about in Isaiah chapter 6. And we're going to hear about another child of Isaiah. I'll try to pronounce the name without completely biffing it. We shall see. So let's open up to Isaiah 8, and we're going to read verses 1 through 10 together. Then the Lord said to me, "Take a large tablet and write on it in common characters, belonging to Maher-Shalal-Hash-Baz, and I will get reliable witnesses, Uriah the priest and Zechariah the son of Jeberechiah, to attest for me." And I went to the prophetess, and she conceived and bore a son. Then the Lord said to me, "Call his name Maher-Shalal-Hash-Baz, for before the boy knows how to cry my father or my mother, the wealth of Damascus and the spoil of Samaria will be carried away before the king of Assyria." The Lord spoke to me again. "Because this people has refused the waters of Shiloh that flow gently, and rejoice over Rezin and the son of Remaliah. Therefore, behold, the Lord is bringing up against them the waters of the river, mighty and many, the king of Assyria and all his glory. And it will rise over all its channels and go over all its banks, and it will sweep on into Judah. It will overthrow and pass on, reaching even to the neck, and its outspread wings will fill the breadth of your land, O Emmanuel. Be broken, you peoples, and be shattered. Give ear, all you far countries. Strap on your armor and be shattered. Strap on your armor and be shattered. Take counsel put together, but it will come to nothing. Speak a word, and it will not stand, for God is with us." So let's dive into this, okay? These events immediately follow Isaiah's speaking, or they begin to follow, I should say, the speaking of Isaiah to King Ahaz. If you remember, chapter 6, Ahaz is out visiting this waterworks, and Isaiah is sent to go talk with him. And in the process of talking to him, we have the events of chapter 7 unfold, which is that he tells Ahaz to ask for a sign. Ahaz says, "No, I won't put the Lord to the test." And the Lord then gives through Isaiah this promise of the virgin, a virgin giving birth to a son, and his name will be Emmanuel. Okay, so that's referenced here. Now, the other thing that is referenced here is going back to chapter 6 and 5. Remember earlier, Isaiah has a son, and the son is basically saying that the people will return to the land. This name is something along the lines of I don't remember exactly. It's the last part of it. Pray hastens. Something is swift. I have to look in my Bible real quick. But okay, here we go. It is wrong spot. Hold on. It is the spoil speeds and the prey hastens. Okay, what this name means is in reaction to Ahaz refusing God's counsel, in reaction to Ahaz paying money to the king of Assyria to basically keep Israel, the northern kingdom, Ephraim, and Syria, which is its ally, from harassing Judah, that God is now angry, and Ahaz's sinful action is going to lead and hasten the judgment of Judah. Okay, and so we get, that's really what's kind of talked about. Basically, the Lord tells Isaiah, make a big tablet, kind of like today it would be like make a poster board, and write out on the poster board in big common letters for everybody to read that these words, that the spoil speeds and the prey hastens, which means basically the end is coming. We're going to be judged. Okay. Not necessarily judgment day, the ultimate judgment day, but a smaller judgment day for their sinfulness, their lack of faith. And these two people that are the witnesses, Uriah and Zechariah, we don't really know much about them. They must have been contemporaries of Isaiah at this time. But besides that, we really don't know much at this point. Then we get to verse 3 and 4, this idea of the prophetess. Well, this is just a fancy way of saying Isaiah's wife. Okay, this is the same woman that he's had his prior son with. Now he's bearing a second son. And this message isn't something that's fast. I mean, basically, for Isaiah to go and his wife get pregnant, they sleep together, she get pregnant, bear a son, and before he's 2. So this is almost 3 years later is when these northern two kingdoms, Damascus is the capital of Syria, and Samaria is the capital of the northern kingdom of Israel, or Ephraim, that both of them will be carried away by the king of Assyria. Now then we get to verse 5 through 8, and this is some metaphorical speech, okay? The Lord spoke to me again because the people have refused the waters of Shiloh. And the thinking of this is, okay, outside one of the walls, there is this river that flows, this gentle river that flows, and it flows down, irrigates farmland, and eventually fills up the pool of Siloam, which is a healing pool, right, inside the city. Instead of rejecting the pool of Siloam and the river Shiloh have always, or Shiloah, have always represented God's constant care for Jerusalem, God's abiding love for Jerusalem and his protection. Well, because they rejected the protection of the Lord, instead they turned over to Rezin, the emperor of Assyria. Therefore, the Lord is going to let this mighty river, and this river is the Euphrates, okay, which kind of borders where Assyria lies. Assyria, represented by the river Euphrates, is going to rise up like a flooding river, overflow its banks, so overflow its geographical boundaries, and now conquer all the lands around it, even sweeping into Jerusalem. So it's like a great and mighty river that is flooding and, overtaking not just its natural pathway, but now going and taking all the land around it in this great and mighty river. And so, but it ends, verse 8 ends, even though this river is coming and it's going to sweep away everything, it ends with, O Emmanuel. But remember, in essence, God is saying, God is with us. And he confirms this how? Well, we look at verse 9 and 10. He says, be broken, you peoples, be shattered. Now, this isn't just the Judeans. This is also the Ephraimites or the Israelites. This is also the Syrians, even Assyria. All of this is being talked to you about here. That all the peoples of the world, when they put their faith in things like their armor, things that they can do, if they put their faith in their counsel, their plotting and scheming together, in the end, it's going to come to nothing. Why? we find this last little part of verse 10, for God is with us. Here's a reference again back to Emmanuel, because God is in control. And we'll see this. I mean, the Israelites, and now I'm going to talk about all of God's people, both the northern kingdoms and the southern kingdoms. They will both be washed away, not just in the flood of Assyria. The Babylonians will come, the Persians will come, the Egyptians will harass them from time to time and conquer them, the Greeks will conquer them, later the Romans. All of these nations, described, for instance, not just in the book of Isaiah, but also in the book of Daniel. All of these nations will conquer God's promised people, his holy people. And yet the Lord will bring redemption. And he'll bring it in a way that is not expected. Again, we keep these words of Isaiah 8 in mind as we interpret these words. We keep the words of the Psalm where it talks about that God's ways are not our ways, that God's ways are higher than our ways, and we cannot understand them. They're the opposite of what we would expect. As the people expected a mighty king that would bring about an earthly reign, instead God sends his son, who is the king, who instead of bringing an earthly reign, restores and reconciles the people of the world to himself. He does it through the cross. And so for you and I today, the hope that we cling to needs to always be, first and foremost, God with us. The cross, the empty tomb. God sometimes will bring us deliverance from earthly cataclysms and struggles and strife. But that is not his promise. That might be something he does as a way, to help us and be merciful to us. But the primary way he delivers us is always this. Because his promise is for the life to come. His promise is for the New Jerusalem, that we would be, citizens of that kingdom, that our names are written in the book of life. And that's what we need to have held before us. And that's exactly where we're going to move as we move into verses 11 and beyond of chapter 8 tomorrow. The promise of the Lord and the promise of restoration. So hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully it kind of unpacks some of this meaning for you and put it in a context that, again, we always put our hope in the Lord and not in our own counsel or anything of this world. So let's pray. Dear Jesus, help us in the midst of so many things in this world that want to not only claim our attention, but also claim our sense of security, our sense of hope. Lord, help our hope be only in you. Your death, your resurrection, your works on our behalf, your calling through the work of your Spirit, your word, your sacraments. All these things, Lord, that you do and continue to do for us and on our behalf. Let this be the hope we cling to in this world. And let this be the message of hope that we take with us each day, everywhere we go. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Everybody have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we'll talk some more.